Climate finance refers to local, national, or transnational financing. It's drawn from public, private, and other sources of financing that seeks to support mitigation and adaptation actions that will address climate change. And another phrase that I hear a lot, and I didn't know what it was before this workshop, so I dug into this. You hear the phrase blended finance a whole bunch, where blended finance is meant to be the solution for a whole bunch of development problems. But blended finance specifically for climate is a way to deploy public resources to catalyze the required redirection of private finance toward climate-friendly projects. So blended finance helps combine the power of development finance from like big IFIs and private capital to reduce risks and increase opportunities for private investors. So it's really a way of kind of saying, come over here, guys, into this new sector. We know that you don't really want to go there because it seems kind of risky, but we're going to do all of this stuff, like give you really good terms to encourage you to move into this area. So why is it even necessary to woo the private sector? This is kind of a big span out. One reason is because the private sector has way more money than the public sector. And, you know, the calculations of the amount of money that is going to be necessary for us to meet that climate goal of decreasing temperature increase to 2 or even just 1.5 degrees Celsius. They said 2019, 2020 average global climate investments were $632 billion, but what we really need is a minimum annual investment of 1.6 trillion. So we have a massive funding gap. Private sector has a lot of money, and we're going to need them to help fill that gap. But we also need to woo the private sector because they're not all the way convinced that climate-friendly projects are a good investment. And there's so many different factors out there that are leading them to that conclusion. It's a new space. It doesn't have a proven track record. There's really limited data or an evidence base. Return on investment horizons are really long. The enabling policy and regulatory structures are not all the way in place. And then you have a whole bunch of contradictory policies where many countries still have ongoing subsidies to fossil fuel companies. So they're getting some serious mixed messages. So I talked about, you know, we have this big funding gap and we want private sector support to address it. And doing some background reading to prep for this workshop. At a really high level, these are kind of the common themes that I saw coming out as shared strategies to address the gap. So one would be working at that level of really addressing and trying to produce an enabling environment, working on policies, regulation, government capacity building. A second one is on catalyzing private sector resources. So this is where blended finance instruments are really important. And the third is building the pipeline of projects, businesses that have climate impact as their main goal.